All right, we're live. We just spent about 10 minutes trying to prepare for what we're doing, and we said, hey, we're having a really good conversation, so we should probably start recording this. So I'm Angie. I'm glad to be joining you.
I'm Lori. I'm also happy to be here, and we really don't know what we're doing, but we're passionate about it, so it's going to be great.
And if you haven't started reading this book yet, I took the paper cover off of mine. If you haven't started reading this book yet, you're still welcome to just listen. And I'm sure there are some things you're going to gain from the conversation. And we're totally open to feedback and comments and just sharing your thoughts as you watch this. And kind of just, coming together on this journey with us. If this truly is a parenting map, then, we want to help navigate that and support you in your journey.
Good wordplay. Navigate.
Yeah. So we're just going to jump right in. And if you do have a book and you want to follow along, we're going to just reference like where we're at in it. So you can kind of make a note if you are with us, or if you want to grab the book, and whatever works for you. We'll try to get through as much as we can, but also be mindful of your time.
I just love, just to start straight out with the preface, the very first couple sentences in the preface, I've heard many times when I come into a new family situation and we say, how can we help? And they're just like, I don't know what to do anymore. I've tried everything. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, and you lack hope and energy, and you're just very frustrated. And so that's why we're really excited about this book, because it actually gives you some actual followable, like easy, well, not easy, it's challenging, but some actual practical thank you for the word, practical things that you can do to kind of help get past that point of frustration and to be willing to try some new things. But it takes work, and we'll talk about courage and things as we go forward.
Yeah, I think that, right in the middle of the page, it says, there's lots of times we don't know where to turn. And many of you have reached out and have taken that step to say, you know what, I need some help. And first of all, we value that you trusted us to be able to do that and to help guide you and share with you some of our experiences and our knowledge and education and training. But that to me is what I think confirmed my own passion for this work, is just knowing that even with my background and even with all the things I knew and practiced and learned, when my kids were struggling, stuff I was doing wasn't working for them. And as a parent, I felt like a failure, but at the same time, I felt like there's got to be more. There's got to be something else. And so if you get to that point where you feel like you've tried everything and you don't feel like what you're doing is working, I'm gonna, from my experience, we left our beloved pediatrician for a while because we needed another opinion. We needed a fresh look at our situation. We needed to get some different professionals in to assess some different things. And I don't regret it at all. Every time we talked to a different person or filled out a different piece of paper, we learned something more about our child and our children. And that just helped us be able to relate to them and the challenges they were going through even more. So I always encourage families now, if somebody recommends an assessment or some kind of a evaluation, say yes. Because as a parent, that information is going to be really valuable to you, and you still will be able to decide what to do with that information. If a professional makes a recommendation and you don't agree with it with your family, then you don't have to do it. It's still your right as a parent to make that decision. So,
well, and the thing that's really cool as we'll move through the book is that with parents that I've worked with, they've been reticent to do kind of the assessments because they don't want to have somebody just tell them there's something wrong with their child. And these are all just different, like my thyroid doesn't work, so I am on medication every day so that I can have an improved quality of life. And those assessments that we put our kids through help us to improve their quality of life because we get to know them better. But it also, those assessments and evaluations are not anywhere they're not an evaluation of you as a parent.
Mhm.
And the things that your child is dealing with, in most cases have nothing to do with you as a parent. And and this book is going to help us to navigate how to keep that separate. Like, my child's issues are my child's, and it's my job to deal with my issues so
Mhm.
that I can be the best partner, really, as my child grows up.
And here's the thing. I didn't think I had issues.
Until she called me and I told her.
But I know I do have issues,
Yes,
and
we
I
all
have
have
a child who reminds me of that on the regular, that mom, simmer down, mom, you got to work on this. So
Yeah,
I think that's fair to say. And when that's the part that stings in parenting, because we know everybody has the best intentions, and we hear it all the time. Like, and I don't doubt, and I say this, if you've been to a training, I have said before, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh, I hope I ruined my kid today. Like, absolutely not a thing, right?
No.
So it's about just kind of looking in the mirror and saying, okay, how am I going to improve myself so I can thus improve my relationship with my child?
I really loved the description of parenting. Sometimes we fool ourselves into, when we're going to start a family or have a child, that it's going to be all like the Hallmark version it talks about in the middle of XI in the preface, birthday cakes, puppy dogs, but it's really a cocktail of love and fear with a deeply psychological level. It talks about is the dark side of parenthood. And I'm excited about the opportunity to kind of talk about that aspect to help us be the healthiest parents that we can as we kind of go through the book.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I like is that, there's a lot of philosophy, and you guys have probably done some research on your own, like parenting philosophies, right? There's tons. There's conscious discipline. There's love and logic. There's, I don't even know.
The gentle parent.
Yes, right. Discipline with dignity. There's all the things, many of which we've read,
Yeah.
and we know, and there are pieces and we like in all of them, but and some of them are very practical, and that's what we pride ourselves on, is giving you guys practical tips and tools. And that's what this book is. This is a lot of the how to do these things and how to think about them in a practical, broken down way, so you don't feel so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes we think we have to change everything about what we're doing in our relationship overnight, and if we don't, then it's not going to work. But this is a really good way to see things chronologically and concretely. So,
and it's little steps and it's little adjustments. When you're driving it, like on TV in a movie, the old movies, maybe you're not old enough, but they would show people like driving and they're talking in the car and the steering wheel is going like this, and doing these big, and we're in real life, when you drive, the adjustments are just very, very, very minuscule, but it keeps you safe. It keeps you between the lines. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about, is those little changes can get you to your destination. And I like how it says that this book is going to urge us to wake up and break out of all of our life draining patterns. And gosh, we all have them.
And you can
100%.
raise your hand if you felt that way.
Oh,
this morning, anyone? Okay.
Life training.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
And in the middle of XIII, it says, we have to be brave and daring and truth seeking. And I couldn't say that more. And, if you're in this group and you saw that post that I wrote last night about a mom who really doesn't trust anybody in her life to ask for support and help, but to be brave enough to even say that, right? Like to say, to say, and this is what we'll find out in chapter 1. I've got crap that's preventing me from doing what I know I need to do. And what is that? And how do I start to pick away at it a little bit?
Yeah.
And how can I own that and not be ashamed of it myself?
And that's a perfect example of how our own stuff can make life a million times harder if we don't address it. And, and I work with a lot of single parents, and I am amazed at all that you are capable of doing, and with all the different obstacles that we have in our different families and stuff. And I think I have a co-parent that lives with me in my home, and we still had to call in the village for help raising our kids, whether it was rides, whether it was another trusted adult in our kid's life that they would listen to more than us in any given moment. Extended family, neighbors, like it's all hands on deck when you're parenting. And so when you feel like I have to do it all, I have to be the mom and the dad and the friend and the counselor and the taxi driver and the chef and the physician, and it's not possible.
Just stop, you're already overwhelming me.
It's not possible. And so we have to know that, and I think we talk with all of our parents that we work with, like when we start to make progress, we get this kind of inflated idea, like now I can be super mom, now I can be super dad, and we sabotage ourselves. And because we think, well, we're making this progress, so we should be able to be up here, and no human is up here. That's the thing of movies. So having realistic expectations and being gentle with ourselves, and we'll talk about that kind of compassion that you need to have for yourself.
And you, like when you say, trying to be the perfect parent, I think, well, my idea of parenting was I was going to raise the perfect kids, right?
Of course.
I mean,
Of course.
I don't know about you guys, but I kind of feel like I have one. I don't want to say that out loud, but I mean, you have kids that do things really well, and then you have kids who maybe don't, right? And obviously, if you have more than one kid, you've got something to compare each other to, and you don't do that intentionally, but have you caught yourself saying, well, why can't you be more like your brother? Why can't you be more like your sister? Like, we do that, not knowing what that message that sends to our kids. So this really does take a look at our own unique individual relationships with our kids and the things that they can also bring to the table that we can learn to appreciate.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing in here that I underlined, the world is going to be a scary place for our kids. We are dealing with the pressures of technology and influence like never before. So parents, now is the time for you guys to really, for all of us, for communities to really embrace how we can come together and support each other and trying not to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm guilty of it. We had to do all the things when my kids were little. We didn't want to be left behind.
Yeah.
But this is encouragement for you, I think, as parents, that you know what's right for you, your kids, and your family. And guess what? You've got to stay true to that. And that's a hard place to go when you see what else is happening over here with whomever doing whatever.
So there's on the XIV of the preface, there's kind of a call to the party, a call to the mission that we're starting on with this book. And it's kind of right in the middle. It says, conscious parenting is not for the faint-hearted. It is for the brave and valorous. It is for the pattern disruptors and the bubble bursters. I love that. The pattern disruptors and the bubble bursters.
Burst the bubble.
Yeah, so that means that this is going to be transformational. It's not going to be something you sit back and say, oh, well, that's nice. That will be good for somebody. I'm sure.
I hope Lori does that and then tells me how it works.
Yes. Yeah, but I will.
You're better than me.
We will use our village, and we'll encourage each other along the way. And I think if you take this journey with us, you'll be frustrated, but you're also going to see, you're going to grow in strength. You're going to grow in compassion for yourself and for your children, and for the journey that you walk together, neither one of you pulling the other one ahead or behind. And you'll find more joy in your parenting.
Yeah. And really come to appreciate your relationship with your kiddo.
Some of them right now are saying, appreciate.
Well, I'm not going to say it's going to change every moment forever.
No, but you are going to have better moments.
Yeah.
Some
And
good ones.
I think so. And I mean, that's my hope. I don't know about you guys, but that's my hope. And really looking at taking away some different, maybe some reinforcing some of the same ideas and approaches that we've already taught you, and reinforcing them, but also being like, just this one little piece makes a difference for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. On page 2, page 2 of the intro, children, are a unique category of human. And I thought, well, if nobody's said that before, they are right. Different set of rules, different brain, completely different language. And we've talked about developmental appropriateness. So if I'm talking to my 3-year-old, it's going to be different than I'm talking to my 12-year-old, but that's not all that this means, right? I mean,
yeah, it's completely different. And we talk to parents about that the work of a child is play. I mean, my work isn't play. Like I'm in a completely different zone, and yet kids playing with the blocks and the puzzles and the dollies and all of that, like it's their work. That's their transformational work that they are doing right now. So they aren't just like nesting dolls. They're not just smaller versions of us. They're completely different. They have a lot of the same moving parts, but they're completely different on the developmental spectrum, and we need to honor that and figure it out. Like,
yeah. And part of that is at the bottom of the page, it says we got to acknowledge what we don't know. I mean,
let me make a list.
I like to say too, I'm not the expert in this field. I'm a facilitator of information and strategies that I've known that work. Like I'm not, and I even had to tell this to my family one time. I'm like, I am not trying to be a know-it-all, but I want to tell you all I know. Like, I think there's a difference in that. Like, you may be out there and you may be the expert. You may have the information and knowledge and education and background in being somebody who is a professional and an expert in your field. And I'm going to come to you and I want to know all you know, right? I look for those people to help me fill the gaps of places where I don't know. But behavior is hard. Behavior is hard to talk to people about that.
It is.
Because I mean, you have to admit you have no idea what you're doing.
Right. And actually societally, there's not a lot of space for that.
No.
For parents. And I mean, I haven't ever talked to a new parent when you're leaving the hospital with your infant for the first time, and everybody's looking at each other like, how they're letting us leave with this human, like, don't they know
of their life?
We don't know nothing about what we're doing, and yet we somehow, I think culturally, we're kind of conditioned, or like we feel a pressure to pretend like we do know what we're doing. And if I ask somebody a question like, is this how it's supposed to go, or is this what I'm supposed to do, or is this what my kid is supposed to do, that you feel like there's going to be judgment. And honestly, sometimes there is.
Absolutely.
And so how do we get past that? Because again, to make reference to the village, if there's somebody who's further down the road in parenting that knows some stuff, why wouldn't we want to know that?
Absolutely.
Like when your kid was teething and not sleeping and chewing on the kitchen table leg, what works for you?
Yes.
And you might get a response like, I don't know, I bought a new kitchen table. Or it might be, oh, well, we had these things that we put in the freezer that they really loved. And, it might be, and so I think we need to let go of that shame and that pressure. Like, it's okay to not know.
I think it's a great opportunity to model to your kids how to problem solve in a situation like that. Like, I've got a daughter on the autism spectrum, and I remember going into, a new environment for her and me myself not knowing what to expect, but how am I going to calm her fears and reduce her anxiety? And really it is that coaching model where I just say, you know what, I don't know either, but we're going to look around. And if we get stuck, we're going to ask questions, and I'm going to be right here with you as we ask the questions, and we're going to learn as we go. Right. And to be able to say that, to go over to as an adult, even, right? Like I went to the post office the other day she knows because it made me mad, the outcome, but I tried my best. Went to the post office to get a post office box. Okay. Never done it before. I didn't know I thought the online form was confusing. So I walked right up to the postmaster and I had the form in my hand and I said, I filled this out online. I don't think I did it right. Can you check it for me? And he's like, well, lo and behold, I did it wrong. And
shame.
Well, I wasn't as ashamed of it until he kind of made me feel bad about it. Not that, but anyway,
Yeah.
this is the idea, right? Like I could have approached it like, I know exactly what I'm doing. This is right. But help me clarify, help me learn how to do it the right way. And I don't think as a society, we've become so individualistic and
Yes.
competitive that
Yes.
we don't look to rely on other people anymore. We're competing so much about who's better. And so we've kind of fallen away from that. Anyway.
And the
side
measures we
tangent.
use for better don't really measure anything of value.
No, and they're subjective.
Yeah.
Because my better is different than your better. And
Thank
who
goodness.
cares? I know,
Because
right?
I didn't have a high school quarterback for a kid.
Oh. but see, and that, right? And
I've
even,
heard people talk to you like that. Like, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
the mom of the quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
And you feel like,
I know, right? But then I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, but he wouldn't be as good as he was if it wasn't for the offensive line, right? If it wasn't for the wide
Right.
receivers, if it wasn't,
and he
Like-
did a little work to be a quarterback.
so when we think about that, did I have, and was that my goal, my dream for my child? No. I mean, it's nice to enjoy.
Yeah.
But the big picture is my child healthy, and are they successful, and are they happy? And what is successful?
Well, he is
what
turning
they-
into a good man.
That's what, thank you. That's what they need to figure out. What is going to make you feel happy, healthy, and successful, and trust your feelings.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness. When my babies were like, and toddling around and doing everything that I asked them to do, I was sure that I knew what was best for them in the long term, like where they should go to college and what career would best suit them. And they taught me very soon, like I'm not entitled to that information as to what's going to make them happiest and make them feel fulfilled. And if, working at a home improvement store full time so that they can fish on the weekends and, do this or whatever, and that feeds their soul,
So be it.
You don't have to be an astronaut to have a happy life. You
No.
don't. Did you know?
Yes, and I'm going to challenge you on that, because that's
Okay.
why we have chapter 1,
Okay.
which says you need to let go of your own self.
Oh dear.
We have to lean into the pain and struggle. We have to figure out that, and I love this, it says we got to speak to our parental delusions. No, I mean, really, you can have hopes and dreams for your kids. We're not saying that, but when we've got to fight the Facebook world. We got to fight that our world is perfect.
It ain't.
Yeah, and I love at the end of on page 5. At the end of the intro, it says, if you project any sort of perfection onto me, let me dispel this myth immediately and tell you the very reason that we help others is that we desperately seek that help for ourselves.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. Like,
Oh,
just because we're doing this work doesn't mean we're authorities. It means we've
No.
learned some stuff
mhm,
by tripping and breaking our noses a few times,
Mhm.
and we're just further along in the path. So
mhm,
if you can
absolutely.
learn from our experience and learn some new lessons and then tell us.
Absolutely. So the first chapter, where are we at on time? We're mindful of what you guys are listening to. So feel free to pause anytime you need to and come back. We're going to try to squeak out stage 1, from frustration to clarity. Now, wow, that would be a big one, wouldn't it?
Yes.
If we can get from frustration to clarity. And what does that mean? Like, first off, if you don't have this book, I appreciate that she's pretty candid, the author,
Yes.
Dr. Shafali, but she says, right, the very first sentence is, the truth is, if you're a parent, you're going to have some major F-ups.
Yeah. Daily.
And
Well,
in
yes.
no other relationship will you screw up as much as you do with your children. So guess what? If you're screwing up with your kids, you are normal and it is expected.
Yes.
And it's okay. Good job.
Yes,
I mean,
you're
you're
doing
meeting criteria.
You're doing exactly what you should be doing. Yeah. And she goes on to explain why, our kids, especially early on, are with us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're evolving all at the same time. And I would tell my kids, I'm like, look, honey, this is your first day being 7 years old and 279 days. And this is my first day parenting you as a
Mhm.
7-year-old with 279
Mhm.
days. Like every day is a new revelation or a
Mhm.
fresh,
Fresh start.
yeah, or something else.
Or
A fresh hell.
a fresh hell. It's a hot new day.
Every day, because we are evolving too,
Mhm.
and we're not the finished product to which our children need to aspire to accomplish.
One of the overall, if you're not familiar with Dr. Shefali, she developed about, I think it was about 8 years ago, she
Mhm.
developed a theory of parenting called conscious parenting. Okay, so this book, all of those, her other two books are about conscious parenting and about the theory and philosophy behind it, but this book is the how, as we mentioned. And in the, the paragraph at the bottom of page 8, she says, becoming conscious means understanding the core reasons why we struggle. Okay. Like why when our kids trigger us, why are we the ones that are slamming cupboard doors, and why are we the ones that are stomping off and getting in the car and driving away like a mad woman, right? And the point is, she says, not to never have these moments, right? Like, okay, give yourself a little grace here. The point is to understand why am I reacting like a 10-year-old when I'm a grown adult, right? Why am I doing that? What is what am I missing that makes me act like that, or makes me snap, or makes me
Mhm.
get so frustrated at some of the goofiest, dumbest little things? Okay, so this stage is about understanding that.
Yeah, seeking to understand that.
Seeking to understand it
And-
with patience and courage.
Yes, but when truth hits you in the face, just, okay, I received that.
Yeah,
And let me think about that for a minute.
exactly.
Yeah.
And just try to step outside yourself. Like that's what I have to do. I have to kind of like step back and step outside myself, even if I get negative feedback from
Mhm.
from a client, or from a school, or somewhere where I feel like I did a really awesome job,
Yeah.
and then it comes back and bites me, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, ouch, like that stings. But I tell you what, I haven't grown more
Yeah.
than when I get that kind of feedback.
Mhm.
My daughter is notorious for putting me in my place sometimes. And I tell you what, as much as that stings like a slap in the face, it's really my opportunity to be like, okay, you know what? There might be some truth in that.
Mhm.
And I have to have a hard, long look in the mirror and feel like, you know what? Okay then. And,
Yeah.
and she's probably been my biggest change agent.
Yeah.
So
One day you'll have a meeting with her and say, thanks.
I
I am really awesome.
am not going to validate her right now, though. We're not there yet.
Not at that point.
Oh, so focusing on step 1, focusing on the right problem. And this, if you do have this book, you'll see that there's some cute little visuals, little graphics, and then there's this little poem that says, I tried to micromanage your moods and fix your feelings and dominate your destiny and control your soul until I realized I was all confused. It wasn't you who needed any solving. The person with the problem was me.
I call that going down the rabbit hole. Because I'm like, how did I get here? And I feel like there's a time warp or something when there's a part of me that just is not present, and where I'm not paying attention to
Mhm.
what it is that I'm feeling. And so I keep trying to solve and fix. And then I find myself down the rabbit hole, and I'm like, how did I get here? And now there's all these other hurt feelings and I've had to learn to say, oops, gosh, like this isn't where I wanted this to go. I need to think about that.
Yeah, at some step in the process, we gotta find our own pause button.
Yes.
Like at what point, and I'm probably guilty with this. My husband is like, will you just stop, right? Like you're pushing and pushing because I'm trying to get to a solution. I'm trying to fix the problem. And people who know me well, and you're a fixer. You gotta stop fixing.
So this is a good on page 11, this paragraph, it starts with, I tried many desperate acts, and just listen to this paragraph. I tried many desperate tactics. I distracted, I yelled, muttered, moaned, groaned, cried, cursed, and panicked. Nothing worked. I paused. I sang, soothed, comforted, threatened, and bribed. I used my scary voice, my sweet voice, my angry voice, my kind voice. I teased, joked, and cajoled. I tried logic and reason. Finally, I just let go and surrendered to my fate down the walk of shame back home, because this parent is having a child who's having a meltdown, and she was trying to stop the meltdown because it was embarrassing and it was painful to her, and she was feeling judgment from eyes looking at her as she's trying to leave the park. And she says, I surrendered to my fate down the walk of shame back home. And we convince ourselves that that's what it is. When I have to leave Target, I leave a full grocery cart there because I've got a 2-year-old who's dysregulated, and I pick that child up, which is best for them, and go to the car, that you just feel like all these eyes of shame on you. And she goes on to say, I sobbed the whole way home, and this was the most humbling moment of my life. And that's a beautiful snapshot of parenting, because she actually was doing what was right for her kid.
And trying. Yeah. Don't you? I mean, I feel that moment. I feel
and
that
you're
moment.
just, oh
yeah,
just dejected. Go ahead, judge me. Fine.
Right. And I mean, this is the help. I mean, it's all.
She says, I should be taken to a torture chamber
and burned as a witch.
No, give yourself a break.
It is. And you know what? And here's what I say when we're like that. Those moments, we know we're so overwhelmed by those moments that we don't know how to get out of them in the moment. So I think some really good advice is sit in it for a few minutes, right? Like, and it's, this story is, you go home, you have a 10-minute pity party, and you beat yourself up and you say all these things about yourself that how bad you feel about it, what you just did, shame on you. But then you're done, right? Sit in it, work through it, give yourself that time, and then be like, and I think moms do that really well. I honestly do. I think we can be like, all right, you go to a friend, you go get a cup of coffee, you just are like, you vent, you do whatever you need to do, you go for a run. And then we're just like, okay, now we need to regroup. Like, that was shitty, pardon my language, but now I'm good. And now I'm going to start over. I'm going to start fresh. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I need to do something different. And if you're like me, it's like when I go to bed at night and I'm just like, I stew about all the things that I might have done wrong that day and how I wish I'm going to do them better. And
how does that work for you?
Well, then I don't sleep.
So maybe let's come up with some other ideas.
I know. So see, I gotta wake up the next day and try again. Try again. You keep trying.
Oh.
And I think those are the turning points. There's a moment, and if maybe you've had one, maybe not yet, where you get to the point where you're like, you know what, we just have to change. And whether it's one thing or whether it's a complete overhaul, any intention, if you have the motivation right now, just take what you have, right? Trust your feelings and say, you know what, I just have to do this piece right now, or I just have to do this. Because if we do try to overhaul the whole thing, we lose momentum and we get discouraged because we can't fix all of it at all. So when we are talking about looking in the mirror at ourselves, try not to be hypercritical of everything you think you do wrong.
I like to set myself up for success. So and sometimes I'm not even successful with this, but to focus on one thing. And my husband is in ophthalmology, and he's like, you can't look someone in the eyes. Did you know that? You can't look someone in the eyes. You can only look at one eye at a time.
Oh, you're right.
So when I'm looking at you right now, I'm looking at your left eye, but we say looking in the eyes, and really our brain doesn't do that. So when we're trying to revamp a whole system, here we go, like we're going to do all the things, like we're losing focus on one thing at a time. And so I like to, like, if I'm finding something, I really need to center myself more at bedtime because I'm really getting dysregulated and I need to think about that. So I'm going to set up I'm going to try to set up some smoothness for that to kind of help regulate myself, be kind to myself. And so that my kids aren't reacting to bedtime when they're supposed to be calming down. And I'm going to do that one thing. And everything else, I'm just going to be like, it's for another day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's for another day.
There will be another day to tackle that mountain.
Yes.
Absolutely. I don't know if you had anything, but I was jumping right to page 15, kind of in the middle. What do we do instead then, right? Trying to just change our focus from I gotta fix my kid to I want to try to just transform my response to my kid. I want to create new habits for myself.
Right.
And that, I think that forces us, and at the bottom, it says, by focusing on us, we focus on changing our entire energy toward our kids.
Yeah.
Because if you really think about it, what do we want our kids to remember about our home? About, right? Like, mom was always nagging at me to clean my room and make my bed. And whenever I asked to go out and play, she would say, no, I've got chores to do. Not like, what do we want kids to remember about that? Do we want them to remember, hey, you know what? Mom would love to play a game with you. Can you help me finish the dishes? And then we can go out and play together, right? That's my reaction to their request.
That you have control over.
I can totally control that.
We don't have control over when our children close their eyes and fall asleep at night. We don't control how many bites of the burger they can take before they swallow. We don't get to choose when they have to go to the bathroom. Like we can't remote control our kids. And even if we know this particular exercise right now is what's best for you, we can't control that. And the older they get, the less control we have.
Oh, yeah.
And so we need to, I mean, when you've got a 1-year-old who keeps going towards the hot oven, you can pick them up and put them in a safe place that they can't escape at the time. But when you got a 15-year-old who keeps going towards something dangerous, you can't like pick them up and say. So we need to realize that, and I think we've talked a lot with our families, is that we try to give up some of that control, because we cannot control our children. We can control our response.
And you can control the boundaries you set within their choices, right?
This is what I can do.
Yes.
This is what I'm willing to do. I'm happy to do this. What you're expecting of me is outside of that.
Right. On 15 going into 16, this sums it all up. Instead of trying to control them, you work on connecting with them. Okay.
What if I don't like them?
Oh, I'm not done yet. This is a long list. Make note. Instead of trying to control, you connect. Instead of trying to teach, you learn from them. Instead of trying to lead them, you guide them. And instead of trying to be their managers and bosses, you become their ally. Your entire energy and approach are fundamentally different. Now, I might need to put that on a poster and put it right up here in front of my, on my wall.
Yeah, even just this versus this, like just to kind of have that reminder. And it can be, I mean, are we leading or are we guiding? Right. Like, yeah,
it's that's really good. It is. And it's just, it shifts your focus. And we talk a lot about intentionality. So like, if you've come to a training and we talk about, you need to be intentional. You need to be intentional about what you're doing and how you're interacting and engaging with your kids. And this is part of it. Dr. Shefali uses the word conscious. You have to be consciously connected to what you're doing, the relationships that you're having. And when you do that, it's not about what your kid does or doesn't do. It's about what you do in response. And we've preached that, right? What your reaction, and that's all of the tools that we talk about, the de-escalation strategies, the emotional vocabulary, coping skills, all of those things, right? That's us as models. So if you're working towards these changes in yourself, that intentionality and that transparency of saying to your kid, mommy's trying a new way to do things. Mommy's trying not to yell at you. So guess what? I started to yell. I'm going to back off and I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to try this again, because we're trying to change our own habits and then to model that to our kids, right? There's a more appropriate way for me to do this, and I want to show you.
That makes me think of a couple of things with the modeling. You know, have you ever seen like a toddler that like gets up from a chair and goes,
Yeah, like an old man.
Yeah. yeah, or they're like, or you know, you're like, go get your shoes, and they're like, you know, and you're like, oh, I must do that. Like they're
Yes.
hearing that somewhere.
Yeah.
And so if we're starting to yell or dysregulated at all, and for us to say, wait, I need a minute.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna take a breath for a minute, and I'm gonna try that again.
Mhm.
We do that enough, and even the little kids are
Yeah.
gonna be like, oh wait, I want to try that again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we've seen lots of kids, even at school, young, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds who, it's cute to see that they'll start to get upset or something, or they'll tell a friend, if you're mad, you just do this, and then we'll kind of look at them like, where did you learn that? My mom does yoga, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like and not even if they do it together, but they see their mom doing it or practice it. It's really that.
I work with a family with a number of kids, and they've been doing the cupcake breathing.
Oh yeah.
And one of them, which is better to call out than saying, you need to calm down. They're like, what flavor is your cupcake?
Take some deep breaths. Yeah. I love it. For those who don't know, cupcake breathing, it's where we pretend we're holding a cupcake and we smell what flavor it is, and then we blow out the candle, and that's how we can help kids do deep breathing. So cupcake breathing might be an option to try.
And then cupcake eating is also helpful.
There you go. What flavor do you taste? How's to the texture, right?
Yes,
We try to engage our senses. So when we shift this focus, it's not about, it's about how we're feeling and how our reaction. So this is where we are trying to emotionally cope with what's going on around us. And it's standard.
Mm-hmm.
When your kids start to get stressed out, you get stressed out. When things start to go wrong, you get stressed out. Then your kids feel that energy. It's like this really crazy game of really big, bad, like Pong, right?
Yes.
Like ping pong or whatever, pickleball. It gets crazy. So this is where our baggage comes into play. Like, what is it about me that is causing me to get so upset about this? Like, what's my baggage, right? Why am I taking it personally? It says, even in parentheses, in italics, it's all about you.
I have a confession story I could share. So my household growing up, both of my parents were educators, and everything was busy all week long. And so we had to fit all of the major chores and whatever we were saying was fun on Saturday. At a finite period of time, we had to do all the chores the big stuff, the yard work and all of that kind of stuff. We had to hurry and get all the work done so that then we could have fun. Right.
Yeah.
There was a lot there, and there was a lot of pressure, and especially as you get into teenagehood and you're like, no, I need to sleep until noon and then I'll think about chores, and then I'll have my fun late at night. But as a family, that there was like this pressure, and so every time Saturday rolled around, and I had to learn this was my baggage. I'm like, okay, what are the plans for Saturday? What do we need to get done? And I would like over plan and whatever. So fast forward to when I have children, and I did not like that pattern that I had growing up, because I think you can have fun while you're doing work. And we didn't do the spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. It was like, get it done and then you can have fun. It was very compartmentalized. And my husband grew up in a family where it was a little more intermixed, and I preferred that. I thought that was healthier. But I had these old things in my head. So there was a Saturday morning, and my kids would work very efficiently, and we could work and then have fun. But I woke up in the morning, and chores were already underway, probably from my husband, and I had interactions with each of my family members, my husband and my daughter and my son and my other daughter, and I was just like, every interaction that I had with them was just salty. It was just not good. And I'm like, well, the attitude in this house today is just, and I took that moment that she's talking about with conscious parenting, and I'm like, what is the common denominator here
Mm.
with all of these negative interactions that I've had this morning? And, and I tried to step outside myself a little bit and observe everybody else. Everybody else seemed to be okay, but I brought this negative energy to everything for whatever reason. And I think a lot of it was just patterns from childhood. And so I put a lot of pressure on a situation that didn't need pressure. And so I had this aha moment, and I was so grateful for it. And I called family meeting, which I do sometimes, and my family goes, oh, great. And after I'd already been cranky with all of them, I'm sure they thought they were going to get the riot act. Like, what have we done wrong?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So family meeting. And I said, excuse me, I need to ask for forgiveness. And I have brought negative energy into, like, I had these interactions and I didn't know what to do. And I realized it's probably me. So I'm going to go have a timeout. I'm going back to my room. Can I have a do-over? I'm going to take like 10 minutes to kind of try to center myself a little bit. And I'm going to come out and try again. Would that be okay? And they all looked at each other like,
yes.
Are we supposed to agree with this? Like, and the rest of the day went well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was all my stuff. They were, I mean, and regardless of how chores were being done or anything like that, like, I was just pouring vinegar on everybody.
Right.
And if I hadn't taken that moment, like, that would have been a waste of day.
Right.
There would have been no joy.
And like those things we don't really realize, I think, is like, our responses, and I'm reading this right out of the book, so I'm not blaming or accusing or telling anybody where their baggage is, but the research from Dr. Shefali says the more we are healed from our own childhood wounds, the more consciously we'll respond to our children and to our situation and our responses. And I think, what are those, right? Like, how we really, I mean, one of the first things I ask a lot of parents is, tell me about how you were raised. Tell me about your childhood, because we all bring things to parenting that we want to emulate from how we were parented. Right now, there are also things we don't want to bring back. And
I made a notebook as a teenager.
All the things when I'm a parent, I will not be. Yes. I think that, and you know what, but that's a great exercise, I think, even as adults, to look back and say, and I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I feel like I want to not do what my parents did, I feel a little bit of guilt. Like, I think my parents are great people. I think they raised us to be successful, happy people, like, it feels like I'm blaming them.
Yeah.
It feels like that to me. And I don't, that's not my intent. That's not what I want. But I think that parenting has progressed so much over the years that we know better. And that quote by Maya Angelou, you know what, when you know better, you do better and you feel better.
Yeah.
And, that piece, I think, when we can sit down and it's twofold. We look at the things that maybe we're not healed from in our childhood or the way we were parented. And we think about all of the things that we have brought to parenting or that we are grateful for from our own parents. I think the twofold for me in that is I can acknowledge all of these miscomings or shortcomings, and I can say, okay, this is my healing piece, but this is my gratitude piece. Like, I need to tell my parents. And, just this weekend they were here. They spent 3 long days helping us prepare for a grad party.
They were working hard.
Oh my gosh. And and in my head and in my heart, I felt that, but I actually took a moment to tell my parents how much I appreciated their attention to detail and how much they initiated, like, doing extra projects that were not on the list, but they saw they needed to be done and they offered to do them, right? Like, that
sounds like you.
It sounds like me, right? I know. And I spelled that out and I said, what you're doing is really important to me. And I value that. And I appreciate that you instilled that in me, because that stuff's important to me. And I got that from them. So I think this, the book talks in this chapter about healing those pieces, but I think we can't become overwhelmed by the healing piece of what we need, because there's so many other grateful pieces that we can also acknowledge and share.
And it might not be, I mean, everybody's growing up is different. It might not be a
Mhm.
parent. It might have been a teacher or a coach that really
Absolutely.
instilled some of those values in you. And
Absolutely.
I've had conversations with my parents similar to yours, and also on things that I have done different with my kids. And I've had frank conversations with my parents, and my parents have said, well, is there anything else that we could have done with you? Because I was a rough kid. Anything else that we could have done with you that would have helped? And I've really thought about that as going into parenting, like grounding for 2 weeks didn't work. This didn't work. This didn't work. And I'm like, what could, and I've honestly said to my parents, like, I can't think of another thing that you could have done. There was some knowledge that I had to come to myself. Oh my goodness. We're having too much fun.
I just showed her the time. Okay. Here's what we're going to end on today. Okay. The last couple pages are practical applications. So I'm going to leave you with a call to action. Okay. We're going to leave you with this call to action on page 18. If you don't have the book, no worries, you can still do this. So grab a piece of paper and a pen and write this down. Putting it into practice, this notion of taking ownership and healing and looking in the mirror, right? Pieces. Complete this sentence. Okay, here's the first sentence you want to complete. I became a parent because.
I wanted a dolly.
All right. Now, your sentences probably likely will begin with I. All right. Now, why is this important? Because it points to the ego of the parent, right? Now I want you, then the next step is to change the sentence. All right. Well, actually, sit with that. Just be conscious of that for a moment, what your goals were. And then the next sentence that you're asked to complete is, I feel stressed with my child because. Okay. Now, the change here is probably that you're going to answer those as, I'm stressed with my child because he does this, she does this, they do this, right? So now notice the difference, and that's just the awareness. And then focusing on the whole point of this is to recognize what my intentions were for my children, and what stresses me out is my response. Okay. And then it goes through and asks us to really get to the feelings inside yourself. When we change the answers to I feel stressed with my child because, when we own that that's us, try to start with the I on that sentence. I feel stressed with my child because I am worried about this, or because whatever that is.
I feel upset every time they come home late, and I don't know how to communicate that.
And it's okay if you don't quite know the answers to those.
Yes.
Like, that's a part of this raising consciousness, raising awareness, and be like, okay, what is it? And that helps us then come back to, this is why I respond the way I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
But to be intentional about asking ourselves those questions, because we don't, they're hard questions to answer. We might not have the answers right away, but if you spend time with them, things will come.
Absolutely. So for the next few days, the challenge from the book is, notice all the ways you blame your child for your stress. I know, wake up here, and try to replace that blame with inner self-awareness. Okay. How is my inner emotional state from my past or my present affecting my judgment about my kids' behavior? Okay. Well,
that was fun for me.
I want to hear your feedback. People. See what you think, and
tell us what you think of Angie's earrings. Aren't they cute?
Are they too distracting?
No, they're cute. they don't jingle. Or
I do like them a lot, but anyway, all right. Thanks, guys, for watching, listening.
Be well.
If you need to pause, if you pause and come, whatever. We appreciate feedback. We
love you.
Grateful for your energy and
keep up the good work.
Yeah,
I keep interrupting you.
All right, we'll be out.
See ya.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.